Hey guys, I'm Jordy, and this is your guide to the ancient elemental of fire and all-around angry guy, Lord Rhyolith.
Soft little fleshy things? Here? Nuisances. Nuisances.
Rhyolith consists of two phases, the first focusing on DPSing his legs and steering him based off of which is taking more damage at any one point. We call this steering, with the goal of having him stomping on volcanoes that he spawns on the ground and avoiding turning him into the river of lava on the edge of the room. His combined leg HP makes up his health pool, and once they're at 25%, his stone armor shatters and you blast the molten lava body underneath, with increasing damage going out in a race to finish him off before he overwhelms you. As far as raid composition, we'll use our standard 2 tanks, 5 healers, and the usual mix of ranged and melee. Nothing special here. You can absolutely one tank this fight, but for prog, I'd recommend 2 just for safety. Alright, let's get into phase 1. On 25-man heroic, Rhyolith has about 60 million HP, 30 million on each leg, but he takes reduced damage for much of the fight, so this number is misleading. More on this buff in a second. Rhyolith himself only does one other thing in this phase. 15 seconds in and every 30 seconds thereafter, he'll cast a raid-wide damaging ability called Concussive Stomp, dealing about 45k damage to the entire raid and stopping in place while he does it. You're looking to use defensive cooldowns during this window, AMZ, barrier, spirit link, whatever. It's not too dangerous, but it does hurt if you're not prepared for it. Okay, let's talk about these little volcanoes that I'm sure you've noticed. Every time Rhyolith stomps, he'll summon 3 inactive volcanoes on the ground. These guys are what you're looking to drive Rhyolith over. Every 25 seconds, he'll superheat one of the volcanoes, causing it to erupt and spew lava at players, applying a debuff that increases your fire damage taken for 15 seconds. That stacks up. You're looking to run him over these active volcanoes especially, as if this dot stacks up too high, you'll be facing a raid-wiping amount of damage. So listen to whoever you put in charge of calling directions and swap to each leg accordingly. Additionally, whenever Rhyolith steps on a volcano, he'll leave a crater where it was previously. This crater will now occasionally activate with lines of fire splaying out across the battlefield that must be avoided. They're not terribly dangerous, but watch your feet and dodge them when you see them. Last thing about these volcanoes, whenever Rhyolith steps on one, he'll get a buff, increasing his movement speed by 100% for a few seconds, as well as a 5% damage increase, so keep an eye on that as you drive him around. Alright, remember when I said Rhyolith took reduced damage? Well, he starts with 80 stacks of a buff called Obsidian Armor, taking 80% reduced damage, and in order to remove those stacks, you're looking to drive him over those active volcanoes so that he stomps them out, rendering them inoperable, but also for every active volcano you steer him over, he'll lose 10 stacks of Obsidian Armor, speeding up the fight. Counteracting this is the first type of ad that you'll encounter, the slow-moving liquid obsidians. These ignore players and slowly move toward Rhyolith, and upon reaching him, give him a single extra stack of Obsidian Armor. So kill them when you can to help the raid DPS Rhyolith. These are pretty low prio, but you do your best to take care of them before they reach the boss. Additionally, there are 2 other ads on this fight that are much more dangerous. First, the Fragments of Rhyolith. Every so often, Rhyolith will summon a group of these around him that your off tank should look to pick up. They only have about 600k HP, but they need to die quickly because after 30 seconds of them being alive, they will cast Meltdown and charge a random raider, dealing 50% of their remaining HP to them. It's important that these die before then, so AoE them when you see them and reduce that raid damage. Finally, the third and most dangerous ad is the Spark of Rhyolith. This thing must be tanked off to the side of the raid because it has a very strong damaging immolation aura that will truck, so tank it away. Range DPS should focus it once the tank gets it under control. Every 5 seconds it's alive, it will gain a stack of Infernal Rage, increasing its damage by 10%, but also taking 10% more damage. So balance whether you should wait to kill it right away or after some time to maximize your DPS. Either way, it does have to die, so handle it and then return DPS to the boss. Melee, ignore this thing and focus on the boss and cleaving the other ads. It will kill you. Oh, one last thing in this phase, do not drive him to the edge of the room where the lava is. He will drink it and one-shot the raid, so turn him away if he gets close as soon as possible. Alright, I know that was a lot, but there's really only a few things you need to pay attention to on this fight, so let's get into the walkthrough. On pole, you're looking to begin with some even DPS on each leg. Assign half your DPS to each, and then after 15 seconds, once the first stomp goes out, start listening to whoever you've elected to call, which direction to focus on, and start on that specific leg. Your driver should focus on active volcanoes first, then inactive volcanoes. Min-maxers will avoid stomping on inactive volcanoes, but for Prog, I would just get them dead until you guys are more comfortable with the fight. The first adds will spawn, so our tank will grab the spark and drag it away, while the range start in on it, and the melee will cleave the fragments quickly while continuing to listen to the calls of which leg to focus on. As the stomps go out, more volcanoes will spawn, and you'll likely need to watch your feet to avoid getting hit by the lines of lava from the cratered volcanoes, so keep your head on a swivel and dodge them. If, for whatever reason, you started to stack up too many dots from the active volcanoes, you're gonna have a bad time. So use those cooldowns and eliminate them as quickly as possible. If you can get a dot reset, you're likely good for a kill. We found it was pretty much the only way we wiped on this fight. Everyone blame the person driving, that always feels good. The battleground should now be pretty full of craters, dead adds, and a few active volcanoes left as we push towards 25% and the start of Phase 2. Now, much has been said about Phase 2 being kind of crazy, but we found if we reached it with most of the raid alive, the boss kind of fell over. At 25%, Rhyolith sits down, stunned briefly, and then stands back up with his rock armor removed and stacks of obsidian gone. We full burn, popping Bloodlust and going ham. Stomps will continue and are complicated by a new stacking buff Rhyolith has in this phase, similar to Bethalak, called Superheated, increasing his damage by 10% every 10 seconds, so use whatever defensive cooldowns that you have left. Adds do stop spawning, so you can stack up and blast, focusing solely on the boss. He also fires a trio of lasers, because who doesn't love lasers, at the raid, so dodge them if you see them coming toward you. Also, he must be tanked, so have your tank taunt him as soon as he's able, and down he goes. Congrats, grab your loot, and keep on trucking. Okay, let's talk about some tank tips. Rhyolith is a weird fight in that most of the encounter you don't have to tank him, so focus on the adds. Assign one tank to the fragments and another on the spark. Spark tank, pay special attention to the adds stacks of Infernal Rage and use cooldowns whenever it gets around 4 or 5. Any more than that and you risk getting killed. In Phase 2, roll cooldowns to help your healers out as well. They've got a ton on their plate and you should have some up for the brief phase. For the healers, assign cooldowns for each of the concussive stomps. It helps mitigate damage and you're going to want to save your mana for the middle of the fight when things really start to get hairy from the stacking volcano dots. If things go awry because your driver turned him in a bad direction, send hymns and Spirit Link to keep the raid up until those dots can fall off. Phase 2 is rough, but should be pretty short so you won't need too many cooldowns for it. And for the DPS, this fight is all about listening to the driver and focusing adds when they spawn. Don't stress out about the liquid obsidians, just do what you can and focus on the fragments and the sparks. They're the dangerous ones and should be killed ASAP. And save whatever cooldowns you have for Phase 2. It's a race to kill him with Lust and he needs to die quick. Alright, well that's it for Rhyolith. It's a fun, if a bit weird fight and should likely be your first kill in Firelands on week 1, as it's easier than any other encounter in here. If you enjoyed this video, do me a huge favor and like and subscribe. I know, but it does help, so thank you. Alright, that's it for me. Thank you so much, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.